Okay, we're live. Hello, I'm Nevaeh. Welcome to the Rainbow Valley Summer Academy Speaker Series. Our guest today is Madden Lopez from Project Q. I'll allow them to introduce themselves. So,
Hi, y'all. My name is Madden Lopez, and I am a queer person of color. I live in Los Angeles, and here I do free haircuts for homeless and housed LGBTQ youth of color. I first met Nevaeh and the Center on Colfax when I went on tour with my mobile self-esteem building salon, where we did haircuts for youth all over the country. And since then, we've all been able to grow and change into the people that we are today. And I'm thankful that we get to have this time. It's very cool.
very exciting.
Yes. So I want to give just a preface for the talk. It's very much based around my own upbringing. And so just so that folks know, there's a little bit of a trigger warning around abuse, but I think that that's a part of our history, and we would be remiss not to bring it into our understanding of who we are today. And the whole goal is that we see the world changing and shifting right now. And I was once told that we thought we would need to change for the world, but now we see that the world is changing for us. And so what the goal of this talk is for us to decolonize our own minds and our own understandings of who we are, so that when the world is done shifting and it gets to the point where it's a safe enough place for all of us to be, that we're also a safe enough person in our own bodies and in our own minds. Because all of the things that other people have been fed to get us where we are today, we've also been fed against ourselves. And so this is about releasing that. And I would love to share my screen. Are we ready?
Okay. Yes, let me. Okay. And if you want to start sharing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm sure you can see this screen, but now let's go to this screen. Can you see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, let me. Okay, that works actually. Go back to that. There we go. Okay.
All right. Okay, so this is called Being a Black Trans Teen at the intersection of internalized homophobia, transphobia, and misogynoir. Now, you can be one or all of those things. You can be a queer person, but not Black or not trans, or, but this is about the intersection so that we can understand what the world believes about who we are.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be fun. It's just going to look like this, y'all. Bear with me.
Right.
So being a Black trans teen, so misogynoir. First, I want to, for folks that don't know what this term is, the misogyny directed towards Black women, where race and gender both play roles in bias. It was coined by queer Black feminist Moya Bailey, who created the term to address misogyny directed towards Black women in America, visual and popular culture. So I think it's important to have that conversation, even if we're non-binary people. It's a little bit about how the world views us. If we're getting misgendered constantly, then it's an obvious sentiment that the world is seeing us in a certain way. So this is about understanding the way that we're seen, and this is a part of that, misogynoir. The next part is internalized transphobia. Internalized transphobia is defined as the involuntary belief by queer people that the transphobic lies, stereotypes, and myths about them that are delivered to everyone in cisnormative transphobic society are indeed true. And what happens with this specific notion is that, it's one of those things where you're told over and over again who you are, and you start to believe it, which is similar with misogynoir, right? It's the internalization of both of those things that many folks find ourselves at the intersection of now. And it's important to bring those things apart in order to grow into the people that we want to be. So what's a teen? A young human being at the age of puberty, but below the legal age of majority. The reason that I wanted to also describe what a teen is, from the dictionary is because that term right there, legal age of majority, means that there's a kind of a lack of autonomy that is able to be had within most young folks. And so we're understanding, for instance, for us at Project Q, we're doing haircuts for those folks to give people just that second to have a choice and to be able to express who they are on the outside. Even though it may not be a life-changing one so far, it's a mind-changing one.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I'm gonna play this song. Let me know if you can hear it. Or not. Oh, our technical difficulties are loving us today, aren't they?
They really are.
Can you let me play? I'm going to go into presentation mode, and if it messes with me, then I'll just back up.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. My name is Sheila. I live at the intersection of being Black, being queer, and I'm a teen. This song that you can hear, if you can hear it, was actually the song that anyone sang to me. Anytime that we met, they would sing this specific song. The song is called Oh Sheila. And in the song, what's happening is this man is on a date with a woman named Sheila. And all that he wants from her is her sexuality. He doesn't really want anything else. He doesn't want to, her to meet his parents. He literally just wants the sexuality portion of who she is. And so from a very young age, from 4 or 5 on, as far as I can remember, I was introduced to people. Hi, my name is blank. My name is Sheila. And they would sing this song to me. Oh, Sheila. Now, even the chorus, the words that he's saying and using are specifically in a frame of coitus. Singing it as if they're singing it to me in a coital relationship, a sexual relationship. So I had to start to think to myself, is that really all that I'm worth? Because that's everyone's first introduction to me. It was my first introduction to myself. But really, who am I? And am I worth more than that? My favorite song, at 11 years old or so, is MC Hammer, Hammer Time. Now, this was the first music video that I ever saw in my entire life, which it was the first time that I was able to hear something and then visually connect it to my heart and see people that looked like me on television. What were they doing? They had their chains and they had their phones and they had their clothes, but they had their outfits and they were dancing in unison. And there was this community about it that I just loved and was overjoyed in.
Can't touch this.
If you remember this song, you're a real one. And if you don't, it's important to take a look. MC Hammer was actually a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
He tried really hard to have other songs, but he ended up spending all of his money. And it's important for us to look back because, number one, this style has made a comeback, and I'm really thankful for that. But it's also important to just remember the positive things.
Can't touch this. Yeah, that's how we live it again. No, can't touch.
Favorite movie was Black Cinderella. This movie had both Whitney Houston and Brandy, which was the first time that I had ever seen any type of positive representation of people that did look like me. And not only positive, but classical, right? Like just to think that Brandy, a Black girl that had her own show called Moesha as well, which is now on Netflix. You should check it out. But to see, watch her show, and she was just a young Black teen living her life. And then she did this movie with Whitney Houston, Jason Alexander, Whoopi Goldberg. They're just this amazing show, this amazing movie that was, a rendition of books that I had already read.
Right.
But for the first time, as I'm reading the books as a child, even if they were, if they were picture books or not, I just never saw myself in those books. And so to take that adaptation into the physical realm and into the moving picture realm, and to make it so very accessible for young Black people, it was the first time that I really remembered seeing myself. But I'm also not feminine. So what do we do when we're seeing these really pretty images and these beautiful glittering? You got to wear makeup and you have to be feminine, because it's the hyper feminization of the Black woman that is the accessible version of the Black woman in America. So the other faves, I was very Christian. I grew up, I would go to church every Sunday. I would go to vacation Bible school, and I would also go to school, to church on Wednesday nights for prayer groups. So I was in church like 3 times a week. And my favorite verse was, "Cast not thine pearls before swine." And this is a verse, I'm no longer religious, I'm no longer practiced, but this was one of the verses that stuck in my mind so heavily. Cast not thine pearls before swine. And in my current version of my 11, 12-year-old self, I felt as though I was the pearl, but no one was telling me that I was the pearl. Everyone was telling me that I was the swine. And so it took a long time to take that apart in my own mind and learn that anyone that doesn't see me for who I am doesn't understand my pearls.
Right. That's beautiful.
So education, Brown versus Board of Education. So this was one of the first things that I learned about young Black women, which was that Black people were not allowed into schools. Unfortunately, let me see, I don't have my notes, but this young woman told her mom that she needed to go to school. Obviously, she wanted to go to the one that was closer to her house, and Little Ruby was her name. And then they ended up, changing the laws. I got to go to the school when I was on tour with my mobile self-esteem building salon. We got to go to the school that she went to, and we got to see it was literally whites and colors. And you can see the disparaging differences in the amount of attention that was paid to the spaces, right? The white watering fountain would be, was always cleaned, and the other one was not. And the bathrooms were always cleaned, and sometimes the Black bathrooms didn't have toilet paper, didn't have running water, right? So this was the first introduction that I really had coming into school and understanding that this was not built for me. Now, if we want to talk about how the school itself had the separation and the physicality, then we also have to understand that the curriculum had separation in who it was for and who won the wars. There's a saying that history is told by those who won the wars. And if we think really far back, we can understand that there are many wars that we did not win. So why would history be told in our favor? Mm-hmm. The Black doll test. So this was another thing that they actually had at the school when we went. They had this Black doll that you see here was in a carrying case, and it brought me to my knees, and it brought me to tears, because what I realized, I'd always heard the story, but this is what happens. It was a test. It was a thought experiment. They had these 2 dolls, one Black one and one white one, and they set them down in front of a range of different students' ages, genders, and, obviously races. At this time, it was specifically Black and white folks. And what they did was they had the kids choose a doll. 100% of the children, 100% of the youth, regardless of age, gender, or race, chose the white doll. And the reason that this is important to bring up in conjunction with education in our history is that they used this test, this thought experiment, in leverage to introduce Black people into schools that they could be in, that were close to their homes, that were taken care of, right? These white schools to integrate. And the reasoning for that was because what they proved with this Black and white doll test was that if we as young Black people were taught that we don't have, that we're not worthy, pretty much, this is like talking about worthiness and speaking about worthiness, then how can we even build any type of personality? And that's really
Right.
the key part and the key element to this specific time that we're in history, as opposed to, and in conjunction with this past time in history where there was such a huge uprising of Black voices and of Black movement, to understand that we have the opportunity and the chance to build our own personality regardless of what the world tells us that we are. We just have to know that that's the switch that we have to hit, and we get to choose to do it every single day. So, trans things. I am a trans person. Thank you very much. My pronouns are they and them. I like, when I'm wearing my mask, I like to say that it's my trans mask, which is funny to me. And I like puns. But I'm a transgender person. I live at the intersection and outside of gender norms and ideals. And I don't believe that there were probably many cis folks that are on right now, but if there are that don't quite understand gender identity in this way, I just want to take it to, I have two stories to tell about my gender identity, but they're both, kind of out there. So the first one is, there's the song, I rode into town on a horse with no name. Is the song. I don't remember the rest of the song, and that's okay. But I rode into town on the horse with no name. What's the horse's name?
No name.
No, the horse's name isn't No Name. The horse doesn't have a name.
Yeah, there is no name.
Exactly. So when people kind of look at non-binary identities and they're like, oh, it's another box for me to put you in. Wonderful. No. Exactly. It is the absence of the box.
Exactly.
And that's why I like to use that phrasing, is like, no, the horse doesn't have a name. No, I don't have a gender. Don't try to, reinstitute those ideals for me. The second part that I like to use, the second story I like to use to describe non-binary genders is when we talk about just thinking of feminism. The term feminism by itself means the equal treatment and opportunities of the sexes is what it comes down to, the genders. Feminism isn't about femininity specifically. It's about equal opportunities for bodies. And so when I think about that, I encompass feminism in my body all at once. Right. Because I'm literally saying I have to be equal to everyone around me, period.
Definitely.
Film. So the mockery of Black women in film is so high. I mean, it's something that we have seen over and over and over again. And when you or me are a young Black person, a young Black woman is what everyone is telling you that you are, how in the world are you supposed to like who you see in the mirror when everyone is making fun of you?
Yeah.
So Wanda and Marcia, I don't know if anybody really knows who the first photo is, but I know that you know who the second photo is because there's a painting of her in your space, I believe.
Yes.
But Wanda was on, not SNL, but she was on Martin and she was on In Living Color, which were two predominantly Black shows when I was growing up. And she was played by Jamie Foxx. And you can see the pursed out lips, right? The wig that's just off kilter enough, the over exaggerated, embellishments to her outfit. And this was what Black men thought of the Black women in their lives. Yeah. This was their way to turn around and say, hey, I may be Black, but hey, at least I'm not a woman, right? Come on. It was their way to kick the dog. And in this situation, Black women were the dog. And it would be important the reason that I put these two pictures together is because Marcia was the embodiment of all of those things in her time. And these photos were taken around the same time.
Right.
So it wasn't just a mockery of Black women, but it was a mockery of Black trans women. Mm-hmm. And the mockery of their over femininity in order to break through these certain stereotypes about their bodies. And to see them put together was really difficult, but also my entire first 5 years of school, I was called Wanda or Shanae, or they would do this thing with their hand anytime that I would make a point that was real and was needed, which that was the first time I've done that this whole time. And I've been points.
Mm-hmm.
Whitney Houston. So I grew up without a mother. I grew up with just my father, and I for a long time thought Whitney was my mom. I really did. I
can see it.
I thought I had her song that plays here, but do y'all know her song?
Oh, I know all her songs.
I'll Always Love You. What was so special about my understanding of her was that I just saw her a little bit further than the pretty and the voice and the presence. I saw her just a little bit further. And as we've found out most recently, Whitney actually had a relationship with her best friend, Robin, for many years. Whitney was a bisexual person, or we don't know, maybe Bobby was her beard. We don't know, but we also don't know where she would be or if she would still be here if she did not have to hide that part of herself. Right. Many people, I find this happens a lot, especially with queer folks, before they're able to come out, before we're able to be ourselves, or before we're able to start our HRT, drugs and alcohol end up playing a huge role because we don't get that other part of ourselves. So being yourself is saving your life, literally. And Whitney is a huge example of that. Okay, this is Queen Latifah. This is one of my favorite songs. This movie, Set It Off, this photo is taken from the movie Set It Off. Queen Latifah plays a woman named Cleo. And Cleo and her friends go around robbing banks. Now, I had already known Queen Latifah because she was on another one of my favorite shows called Set It Off. No, Set It Off, excuse me. It was called Living Single, which you can find also, I believe it's on Hulu. In Living Single, she plays this straight woman that runs a magazine. But then Set It Off came out, and she was this beautiful, dykey, butch, masculine person that was a good friend to her people, loved the people around her, and also had, a beautiful girlfriend that she got to live with and be with and bought things for with the money that she stole. But she was the real first time that I looked and I was like, look, she's not trying to appeal to the male gaze. She's not trying to be feminine for anyone else. She is just herself. And I had all of her albums before this movie, and I would stare at them and I would look at her again the same way I would look at Whitney and go, I see something else. I see something further than this photo, and I see myself in that. I don't know what it is, and it wasn't attraction. It was representation, and I didn't have the words for that at my young age. But even in this representation, like I said, she's a bank robber. Right. She's stealing from people. She is helpful and loving to the people that she loves, and she's a great representation in that vein. But what am I to think if this is the closest alignment I've seen with who I am? Right. Is that what I have to be in order to be able to live my life? Right. RuPaul's. So this was another one of the first times that I had seen Black queer representation. RuPaul. This screenshot is taken from the movie is the Brady Bunch movie. And in this film, she is the guidance counselor to the young white folks that come in to help her. So this kind of also plays on the magical Negro experience that is for another talk. But she is kind, she's loving, she is of power, right? She is pretty, she is sweet, she is delicate, and she is all of these things that I had not been told that Black women could be. And I remember the moment that I asked my dad, I said, oh my God, who is that? Like, who is that actress? Who is she? And he said, oh, that's a man in a dress. And I said, well, she's beautiful. Right. And that was all that I needed to know. And to this day, we have seen how Ru hasn't stopped since. And we all have our own feelings about how Ru has gotten to where he is now. But at the beginning, he was a punk. He was a rebel. He was changing the world just by looking in the mirror and liking what he saw.
Definitely.
And that is power. That is powerful. But also on that feminine spectrum. So it's interesting how with the masculinity, it's harsh, it's rule breaking, it's law breaking, but in the femininity, it's not. And it kind of goes back to this misogynoir where we have to be the hyper feminine in order to be accessible and acceptable. Right. So music. I love music. I don't know about y'all. Obviously, you can tell that I love music because I did put it in throughout this entire program. But the representations that I had of music growing up were not that great. And they really made me think strangely of myself. Snoop Dogg, Gin and Juice. I'm just going to play a little snippet of this. I still love this song because it's a part of my rearing. But he literally says, G's up, hoes down. We don't love them hoes. So am I the hoe? I don't know. Am I the G? I don't know. But what I did know was in that vein, I wasn't respected, even though it's what played on the radio constantly filling my brain with the idea of who they think that I am.
Right.
This, again, still one of my favorite songs to this day. I am on a huge Ice Cube kick at the moment because when things are hard, I need to listen to things that once made me feel good. Even though in this song he says, felt on the big fat fanny, pulled out the jammy and killed the punani. Now, I don't know if y'all know what that means, but in 90s speak, it is, I'm just in this situation for sex from this person, and I actually don't care about their emotional states. Regulators. Nate Dogg and Warren G, this is some West Coast songs for you.
Oh, it's
not much. Since these girls pick me, I'm gonna glide and swerve. These hookers looking so hard, I straight hit the curb. Now, that's not how I speak about women. It's not how I speak about sex workers. It's not how I speak about the people that I care about. But that is how the Black men that had the attention of the world spoke about me and the people that looked like me. So how was I supposed to see myself other than, a plaything for them, a sex object, not worth anything other than what I could do with my body as opposed to what I could do with my mind.
Right.
This, again, I tried to sing it at karaoke recently, and it was not a good idea. Poison. Never trust a big butt and a smile. And this was very difficult because this was really early on in my life. One of my favorite songs to this day. I know every word, and I really shouldn't have known it then, and I shouldn't know it now. But this is a part of those things that seep in and become a part of who you are. Black queers.
Yeah.
William Dorsey Swann. So I have loved learning more about my Black history and my queer history and the intersection of that. William Dorsey Swann was actually someone that she was a slave. She was one of the first trans folks, or as they would say, cross-dressing folks of the time. And she was one of the first Black queer people to start a riot and to start fights and to stand up for herself because she was getting beat up all the time. And unfortunately, we have lost a lot of the history, but she's not the only one. Learning about Miss Swann gave me the opportunity to see that I existed long before our history in America. Because if she was a slave, then she was born into all of the oppression and still loved who she was and was able to dress up and be who she was. And she would have to hide it, obviously, so she didn't get hurt, as we often do now. But what learning about her has taught me is that things are not as hard for me as they were for my ancestors. And I'm thankful for how hard she fought so that I can be who I am.
Yes.
Tony McDade. Tony McDade died recently. And in the uprising, the most recent uprising of Black lives and how they matter, Tony was kind of swept under the rug for being, he's a Black trans man. And a lot of this is what's really difficult in our current situation. When trans people die, they are remembered by their dead name. Mm-hmm. They are misgendered by news and media. Yes. And unfortunately, they are not remembered the way that they wanted to represent themselves. Yes. And he has just been such a representation of me, of telling our stories before other people get to tell them. Mm-hmm. The Bible. Now, I told y'all I was very religious. I would go to church very often, and I actually really loved Christianity. I believed it, and this is not to down anyone's religion by any means. If anything, it's to let you know that I still stand by a lot of the practices and the morals that I've learned. Right. But it didn't tell me that I was a good person. Leviticus 18:22-23 says, "You shall not lay with a man as you lay with a woman. It is an abomination. If a man lies with a man as he lies with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them." Now, whoa. First of all, this is like patriarchy at its best, because it's not even speaking to, the other spectrum, or obviously the in-between. But reading this and learning that sodomy was not just a sin, but it was against the law, obviously told me that I didn't need to exist. Right? Up until 2013, gay marriage wasn't even legal. And I think that for folks that weren't at marrying age until recently, or are still not, that wasn't that long ago. I've been married for 5 years. And the reason that I've been married for 5 years is because that's when it became legal nationally. Genesis 1:27 says, "So God created man as his own image, in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them." Now, I would love to read this and say he created them. Yes, it is me. But in reality, what this is saying is that there is no in between. There is no outside or inside. And it's also completely diminishing the struggles of trans people. And it would be silly to believe that there were not intersex and trans people during biblical times. Right. So this is something that is damning them even then. So there was a turning point. I know this has been so grim, but there was a turning point. And I don't know, do you all know about Y2K?
I know a little bit about Y2K. I've read a little bit about it.
Okay, let's talk about it. I'm going to let this play for a second. Y2K. In this song, it's called 1999 because that's when the switch happened, year 2000. I was born in 1986, and so, we were taught that the year 2000, like, oh, that's going to be the rapture, right? I mean, growing up super Christian, that's what I believed, that the rapture was coming. It was coming in my lifetime, and I had to live according to the Bible, and I had to live according to my parents' rules and to the world's standards in order to live in the way that would allow me to go to heaven, is what it came down to. This song is by Prince, and it's called 1999, Party Like It's 1999, because even when this song was written in the 80s, people believed that at midnight on, December 31st, 1999, that the world would end. That's not even a joke. Like, I would love to pretend like I didn't believe that 20 years later, but I did. I absolutely believed it. I did not know what was going to happen. And all I could think of was, I have to live the best life that I possibly can in order to go to heaven.
Right.
And I thought, okay, it's midnight. And I was sitting and I was there and I was about 13 years old and I had already come out to myself and I was really trying hard to be as a straight person and keep myself in the closet and not be who I was because I couldn't fathom not being able to go to this place that they told me that I need to go to.
Right.
And I'm sitting in my grandmother's living room and it's 11:59 on December 31st, 1999. And I told myself, okay, now this was a long time ago. Dick Clark was around. He was a guy that would do the countdown at midnight and the ball would drop and you're watching it on an actual TV that plugged in and had like an antenna. And I'm like watching this happen and the ball is slowly dropping and I started to make promises to myself, okay? This was a real turning point. I started, okay, at 10, I said, all right, I'm gay. I'm Black and I'm gay and I am queer. And, I don't really like the fact that I have to be feminine all the time. And I want that to be okay. And I want to be loved.
Right.
I was at 10, 9, 8. And I want a wife. I want to have a wife and I want to have a business. I want to be a safe person. I want to be able to live my life and be a positive influence on other people. Not like I've seen in the past, but I can do it. If I live through midnight, I can do all of this.
Right.
6, 5, 4. I want to help people. I don't want to be the person that people run from on the street or the person that people make fun of. I want to be the person that people love and that people come to for advice. 4, 3, 2. And you know what? If the sky isn't exploded by the time I get to 1, then I'm going to be the person that I want to be. I'm going to be all of those things. And I'm going to figure it out because I don't know who else is doing that in the world, but I'm going to learn how to do it for myself. 2, 1. I looked up and I looked around and the lights were still on.
Right.
And my grandmother's clothes were still there. I figured if anybody's going to go to heaven, it's going to be her. So if she's still here, I'm fine.
Right.
And I just decided right then and there that I got to be who I want to be every day. Now, I'm sure that this is not a surprise, but I was literally talking from the first person. My name is Madden. That person in the photo's name is Sheila. And that's okay. And it took a long time for us to meet again and to get to know each other again, because during my transition and coming out and learning who I am and how the world views me, it felt like they just gave me a whole new set of rules that I had to align myself with. But every time that I feel like I'm slipping into that slope of who I am not, I think back to that moment on December 31st, 1999, where I decided who I was going to be in this world. And this is something that we get to do all of the time. We get to do it any moment of the day. If we just had an argument with a friend and we didn't know that there was some information that we didn't have and we feel bad, we get to count down and be the person that we want to be in that moment. Because that's the only representation that we need, is the person that we see in the mirror. Now, it's not our fault that the world told us that we're that person. It's not our fault that the world told us that we were unsafe and that we were thieves and that we were ugly and that we were unworthy. But it is our fault if we don't change that for ourselves. Mental health right now is more important than any time in the world, specifically for us, because, again, the world is changing and we need to be the people that we were born to be when the world is ready for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I loved it. Oh my gosh.
Okay, I'm backing out. I'm going to go find you.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Would you like me to remove your screen? Okay. You're right.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, there you are.
Hi. Okay. Do you still need to screen share?
No, I'm trying to turn it off, but I'm trying to find you. Can you turn off screen sharing for me?
Yes. Okay. I'll give you a second.
There you are. Haha.
We good?
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you.
Of course. That was a really great presentation. I just want to thank you so much. That was very informative, very emotionally informative, I feel. I feel like I really connected with it. So thank you for that.
Yes, of course. I'm so thankful that you were able to see, my heart in that presentation, because I think a lot of times folks don't understand why I do what I do, but to break it down as in I want to be a good person, period, because I was told that I wasn't, is so important to the shift that we get to make in our own minds and our own hearts.
Definitely. Yeah. So is there anything else that you had planned? Do you want to talk about? You want to just kind of talk about the presentation in general?
Do you have any questions about it?
I don't really have many questions. There were a lot of parts that resonated with me, and I have personal experiences if you'd like to hear them or want to share any.
I would love to hear them.
Yeah. So the one that first came to mind was the part where you're talking about Queen Latifah and how even though she was this, she wasn't adhering to femininity and she was being a really, butch, visibly queer person, she still was breaking the law. She still was bad for some reason. And, one of the first characters I really, truly saw myself in was Poussey on Orange is the New Black.
Yes.
It was to see a young queer Black person experiencing love and personal struggles inside of a prison was a really weird area to be in, because I love them and they're a good person. I see that, yet they're in prison for something that a lot of other people wouldn't be in prison for anyways.
Right.
And so I learned, when I started watching the show, I was like, I'm not meant to exist as a free queer person. I kind of got that from the show. And then, spoiler alert, when they removed her character, it was incredibly traumatizing, because that is, one of my worst fears as a Black person is to be taken out by a police officer or some kind of white agent of white supremacy. And to see that to the only person that I really connected with it felt like society was taking away me and my existence just by that character. And so, I think that while talking about representation is so important, we have to make sure that the representation is good and that they live full, complete lives. And a lot of people don't get that. They think, oh, I put a gay character on there, but then they died, so it doesn't matter, because you're still taking away and telling young gay people that they can't exist. And so it's good to hear that someone else has had that experience, just to, feel that connection.
I definitely have. And when my hair was shorter, I would get mistaken for Samira Wiley all the time, which only made it hard because she died. But she also was one of those that showed you can be you in jail.
Right.
I thought for a long time before that show that I would only be able to live the life that I wanted to if I was in prison. And it was because that was what they were showing us. Now, that is a very literal representation, right? But the way that their character was written, they were in jail for being in love.
They were. With
a woman. And so that only takes it even further. Another spoiler alert, but
sorry.
If you haven't watched it yet, it doesn't take away from it. Go do it.
It's important, actually, I feel.
Yes.
Yeah, and also the parts where you're just talking about music and how especially Black women and Black femmes are perceived in music. I always felt like I had to, if I wanted to listen to Black music, I kind of had to just ignore it. And I had to pretend I was a guy and be put in that mindset so I could enjoy it. And I feel like that's kind of how they mean to make the music, is for Black men. And then when there is music for Black women, it gets trashed on when it's made by Black women, even
Like,
as we've seen
wow.
with
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it's like, why can't we have that? Why do we have to give that up or put ourselves in your shoes? Why can't we have our own shoes?
Right.
And so I definitely understand where you're coming from on that.
Absolutely. And again, you know, the world is changing, and I have to remind myself that. And I also, you know, this is for another talk, but I read and watch a lot of science fiction, like a very healthy amount. I was going to say an unhealthy amount, but no, it's a very healthy amount. But, you know, the way that it's referred to is speculative fiction. And the reason that I take that idea of like, I'm going to speculate my future, right? That's my hope. That's what hope looks like for me. And that's the practice energy that I bring into hope, is believing that it will exist and suspending my disbelief that it can never exist. Right.
Yeah.
So when I think of the future changing and the world changing and it being a good place for us, it's literally has to be as much as I believe, or as much or more than I believed that I wasn't worthy. Right. It really has to overshadow the pain and the energy, the old energies. But like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get there. Right. One of my favorite authors' names is Octavia Butler, and she writes a lot of speculative fiction and sci-fi. And if you haven't read her stuff, check it out. But she specifically writes Black women, Black non-binary people, Black queer folks in these leadership roles going through really difficult times. And the reason that I love reading them is because when she's talking, you know, if someone gets cut, she's talking about what the cut looks like on Black skin. And it's a way to imagine ourselves in the protagonist role in a way that we never have. But she's also not just saying Black women are the best, Kate, book's over. You know, she's showing that how we have to learn to be the leaders and how we have to learn to be the center and the main characters in our own stories. Right. Batman, not Robin.
Definitely. Yeah. And I definitely hear what you're saying about like building our own stories and putting ourselves in the center. I think a lot of times people will center their lives around other people without even knowing it, and they have trouble like unlearning that. And so you really have to push, especially marginalized identities, because they're so used to being pushed to the background anyways that they don't even know where to begin to push themselves to even a side character. Like they literally cannot comprehend being in the front or in the spotlight. And it's something you really have to do yourself, and you have to, you know, look towards other people like you to do like reading those books, and I can be a leader. I can be that main character. And so I think, you know, you have to do the work while also working with your community.
Yes, it's a joint effort. And one quote that I really love that I read recently in the book Emergent Strategy, which is also written by a Black queer femme, because that's what I do. There's a line that she says, "You're only somebody in relation to somebody else." And so it's a quote on not taking yourself too seriously, but also about being in community with other people. Right. I am Project Q. So I'm Madden Lopez. I run Project Q. I do haircuts for queer youth of color. But if there are no queer youth of color, who am I? Right. And just remembering that. And another one of my favorite, and I'm just going to keep rattling off all of my favorite Black queerness that's out there in the world. But Kimya Dawson is another one of my absolute favorite, like, queer Black punks who she has a lot of amazing songs. And one of her songs says, "What we all become important when we realize our goal should be to figure out our role within the context of the whole." And that's like, right? Like it's mind blowing, because we've always been taught that our role is not that of, once again, the main character, but figuring out the role And then in the context of the whole and how that does not, which means like we're not recreating, patriarchy, right? Within communities. But what we're doing is we're figuring out how to not let this happen ever again. They say that for those that don't know their history, they're doomed to repeat it. And we have to know our history first so that we can learn how to change the world for the better.
Right. And I think that can kind of relate to what's happening now of like a lot of people are trying, or some people have been doing things that they've seen in the past and that have worked, but only got us so far. And it's like we need to go that extra step so we're not just getting back to where we were before things were crazy and bad. But, when you think about it, things have always been kind of bad. Things have always been hard for most people. And a lot of people want to get back to this normalcy, but you have to look at things in the whole and in relation and not making those same mistakes or getting to that same place that we were, but going further. And like you said, not recreating the patriarchy, not, putting us back in a society that's where we once were. We want to go further.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And, power is a drug, it is an addictive drug. And when someone is, is trying to detox themselves from a drug, if they're trying to like stop, right? And they do cold turkey, they get sick, they get violently ill, right? They have to be watched and taken care of because they're in pain because they're that thing that they had that was keeping them at bay, right? At normal, even if it was just a functioning addiction, it's gone. So when we think about America and we think about power being a drug, right now, if we're starting to pull things apart, this is the withdrawals. It's not that things are so hard and so bad now. It's that we've been like actively processing on this drug for so long, and we're like, no, not anymore. Stop. And now America's like, convulsing. Definitely. because there's that thing, that power that they used to have over Black folks, over queer folks, even over our economy, like all of that is being stripped away, and America's convulsing at the moment.
Right.
So I think that it's in steps of the right direction. It just doesn't look fun right now because we're not used to it, but it's okay.
Yeah. And learning is about being uncomfortable and sitting in discomfort and being okay with that. And to have these, make these leaps of social progress, we have to be uncomfortable. We're gonna be uncomfortable. And a lot of people would rather just go back to their bubble and go back to what they know, but that you can't have progress that way. And so I appreciate the people that are, trying to deal with this uncomfortableness and, deal with these withdrawals and sweat it out, do what they need to do. And that's what we need right now, is to really do that and get through this.
Yes, it's precisely what is necessary. And it's an internal struggle. And that's why I'm focusing on Black queer folks and how we can get through this, because it's really easy to say to our coworkers or to people in the grocery store, like, hey, that was like a microaggression. And I don't think that you understand it because you're not a Black person, but that's okay, because like I'm gonna teach you about it. Now, that's wonderful, but that is a lot of external work. We have to remember that we have also been inflicted with this disease of addiction. And it's not, even if, the same way that addiction affects a household, a family, right? Even if we weren't the ones in power, we have to go to Al-Anon, right? We have to take care of ourselves. So that's like the way that I see us moving forward. And even if we weren't the ones that were in power, we still have to unlearn what this world has taught us because of the dynamics.
Yeah, dynamic shifts change everybody. They make everybody all messed up. So everyone has to adjust to it.
Yes, precisely. I'm really proud of you. This has been really cool. We didn't get to talk a whole lot when we met the first time, but it has been so cool to be able to be a part of this programming that you're doing for summer and have it be coming through you. That is, once again, it is representation, and it's what I need just as much as anybody else. So,
Right.
I'm so happy to see it, and I can't wait to see how far you grow and change. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. It's so great to talk to you. I try not to have idols, but I try to have people that I aspire to and I look to for guidance of how to, like how you were saying, you just want to be a good person baseline. That's how I feel too, of like, I want to help people, and that is what I consider being a good person. So you definitely helped me a lot with what I'm doing. So thank you so much as well.
I'm so glad to hear that. And every time that I get to do that, and it makes me feel safer, I think that the thing about being a safe person, like a safe space of a person, is that you're creating safety for the people around you. Now, when you're in a space where people don't think that you're safe, then that affects your safety, right? So for instance, so many of our people that are Black men, our Black families, our Black, Breonna Tate, like everyone that has died this year, all of these Black folks that have passed away by the hands of a space that felt that they were unsafe.
Right.
And so this is exactly why being a good person and being a safe person is important for us, and to normalize it. To just, boom, it's just normal. Yeah, that Black queer person over there, yeah, you don't need to cross the street when you walk past them. You don't need to clutch your purse or roll up your window, because they're probably safer than anybody else on this block.
Right, exactly. I'm a threat. Please come to me. I love it.
Exactly. Well, not right now. Keep 6 feet distance still.
Yeah,
but,
stay away. Come to me 6 feet away. Or virtually. I like virtually.
Virtually is good too. I'm enjoying virtual. I mean, I don't think that I would be able to do this type of programming with y'all from this distance if I wasn't on the hair stream, right? If I wasn't there in person doing haircuts. So this is the part of the world shift that I'm excited about. A lot of therapy organizations are going to telehealth, and they're becoming more accessible. And just like, this is what I'm talking about. It's changing. And it's no accident that it's in the middle of a pandemic, because everyone has to pay attention, and so that's one of the things I want to leave with y'all is just, pay attention to your surroundings so that you're physically in a safe place, and it will help the people around you to stay safe.
Right.
Yes.
Well, thank you both. Our lovely ASL interpreter, Kendra, thank you so much. Thank you, Madden. Q, this was lovely, so informative. I hope everyone watches this and really listens to what you have to say and gets to know you. I think it's an honor to get to know you, especially on such a personal level with the presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. For anyone that enjoyed our presentation and wants to further have more programming as this, I know that they're having a lot at the center on Colfax and Rainbow Alley, but we're also doing a lot of programming at Project Q virtually, where we're holding Black trans teen groups. And I told you about this, Nevaeh, so I'm going to send you a link too, so that you can be part of it. And it is for all ages. We focus on teens because a lot of them have to be at home and in unsafe places. So visit projectq.me and find out more about who we are and what we do.
All right. Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nevaeh. And thank you, Kendra.